Hello, everyone. Today I will be covering group therapy, the first part of chapter 16. For the next class, I will be posting the second half of chapter 16, which is couples and family therapy. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm available by email or can do Zoom if needed. Thanks. All right, I'm going to stop the video here. Just my voice for the rest of the lecture. Okay, so for group counseling or therapy, there's a lot to cover. I've taken whole classes just on group counseling therapy, that run a whole semester. I've taken advanced group, I've taken multiple group therapy classes. So we're just going to condense this into one lesson for today. Just a few things to know is that group therapy has been found to be efficient for a form of therapy, and it can actually be even more beneficial than individual work. There's a lot of reasons for this, but particularly if someone's feeling very alone in their problems, being in a group can really help them realize that they're not alone. Also, if they have issues with interpersonal things, like they're getting into fights, people have a hard time relating to them, they have social anxiety, group therapy is actually really, really beneficial for them. And actually, for social anxiety, one of the best treatments is group therapy, which you might think is counterintuitive since people are going to be anxious, but this is good exposure and good practice for them. So, like I mentioned, this is especially good for people with interpersonal and relationship issues. So, what are some advantages of doing group therapy? In group therapy, people can really explore and improve their style of relating to others. In one-on-one therapy, you're only relating to your therapist. However, in group therapy, clients are not only relating to the group leader, group facilitator, they're relating to other people around them, and they're learning about their way of interacting with others. And they can practice out new ways of interacting. So this is that second advantage, is that they're actually able to practice being vulnerable, asking questions, um, communicating differently. So this is a new behavior that they can practice in the group setting. Another advantage of group therapy is that this is more like the real world than individual therapy. In individual, you're in a private room just talking, um, with your trusted therapist. But group, there's other people in the room. You have to learn how to open up, how to interact with others, and this is going to be more similar to everyday world than one-on-one therapy. Like I mentioned previously, people can identify with others in the group, learn from their experience, other people's experiences, and feel a sense of closeness. Oftentimes, groups have a major bonding experience where they're doing tough work and getting close and supporting one another. People can learn how they affect others. So, oftentimes, people are often blind to their interpersonal styles and how they might be coming across to other people. But in group, that's something that we discuss, how your actions, your way of behaving is interacting and affecting other people, their emotions, their abilities to want to get close to you, and so on. People can work through past unresolved conflicts in group. So if people have conflicts, not with these particular group members, but let's say um, with friends. These group members aren't friends, but they can sort of work through this with friends. Let's say they have issues with men and there are men in their group. They can work through these unresolved conflicts. And there's going to be diversity in group. So people will have different backgrounds, different class backgrounds, different racial backgrounds, gender backgrounds, and they can learn how to respect these individual differences and cultural differences. Now, this doesn't mean that group is for everyone. There are some particular cases or things that it would be not advised to do group therapy. So particularly if someone is very suspicious, of other people, if they're extremely hostile, this would not create good group dynamics. Or if they're particularly fragile, if they're in a state where they can't regulate their emotions, they've recently had some grief or trauma, maybe they need to go to individual first to sort of help them build up that strength, build up that resiliency, and then they can do group therapy. Some personality disorders might be difficult to have in group, like a narcissistic personality disorder. If someone continues to make the conversation about them, they're not being vulnerable. Also, like antisocial personality disorder, where someone is particularly unempathetic towards others, that would be difficult in group. And psychosis. So if someone's not in touch with reality, this would be difficult to do a group session with if they don't know what's real, what's not real, if they're hearing voices, things like that, that might be particularly difficult. All right, so for the rest of this mini video, we are going to talk about group leaders. Now, group leaders are very important for group counseling or group therapy. Like other therapy groups leaders typically, especially for group therapy, group counseling, would need to have a master's degree similar to individual therapy. But there's some specific skills, trainings, things that they need to pay attention to that are different than individual therapists. So we're going to go over these, and we're going to start with group leader approaches. So group leaders have choices to make throughout the therapy. They need to figure out where to focus the therapy session. So let's imagine that someone comes to group crying that day. They're very upset about something. The group leader has to decide, where are we going to focus the group? If they focus it on the group-centered approach, they might notice that the group is being silent as this person cries. They might ask the group, what's happening? Why is everyone silent as Molly, or whatever the client's name is crying? So even though it's an individual person crying, in this case Molly, they're going to focus it back on the group. What's happening right now in the group? Why are people asking questions? How are people giving Molly support? So they're going to focus it on the group. If it's individual centered, they might take some time and focus on that one individual crying. So Molly, what's going on for you right now? And they might follow up and check in with Molly. So they might focus the group on an individual. Or they can focus it on interpersonal relationships. The leader might say, Molly, you looked at Jim as you were crying. Jim, what's it like? What are you feeling regarding Molly's crying right now? So focusing on a very specific relationship between Jim and Molly. This would be an interpersonally centered focus. And this will switch throughout the group. Sometimes they might focus it on the group as a whole. Sometimes they might focus the session on one individual person, or they might focus on a specific interpersonal relationship between Molly and Jim. All right, so besides the approaches to how they're going to lead the group, there are specific tasks that group leaders must focus on. So what are some of these tasks that are involved in the daily running of groups? One task is creating the group. So as a therapist thinking about a new group, they might come up with an idea. Let's say they want to do a men's group, or they want to do a group for survivors of sexual assault, or they want to do a group for parents who are dealing with children who have developmental disabilities. So they need to create the group, come up with a way to form the group, and then they need to select members. So they might advertise the group, they might reach out to specific communities that they think might be interested, And then they usually do some sort of interview process to make sure that these people are a good fit for the group. So we call these screening interviews. They're not as long as a full session, maybe 15, 20 minutes, where they ask about um, their goals for the group, why they're interested in this group, and see if it's a good fit. If it's not a good fit, they'll screen them out maybe to individual therapy. Maybe they need to do some individual work before joining the group. Then they prepare members. Once they've selected them, they try to establish expectations. So they get the potential member to come up with some goals that they're wanting to work on, what they're expecting from the group, see if that's a reasonable expectation, see if they can commit to coming weekly. And this is to prevent people from dropping out of the group. They also might try to find a balance of group members so that it's not all just one particular age group, like a mix of ages, a mix of genders, depends on the type of group. Then, once the group starts, the leader really has to build the culture of the group. So, in this early stage of group, the leader has to set the norms for what the group should be like. And this is because they are the technical expert. They are the ones with the training in group therapy. They can help people know what to expect. They can sort of set rules that people share in a certain way or interact in a certain way. So the technical expert is the role that they're playing because they have the skills and training as a group leader. They also are setting the norm by being a quote unquote model setting participant. So they're a part of the group as well. They might not have the exact same problems, but they're going to interact as a participant and show and model what a group participant should be like. So this is showing non-judgmental acceptance, showing that people can express negative emotions, um, can say things without the fear of judgment. They recognize the strengths in other people as well as the problems in others. So they're taking a holistic approach. They can make mistakes. This is the idea that they're fallible, that they might own up to, I messed up right there. I missed something important. So they're modeling what the other group members can do in the group. And so this is really, again, setting the culture of the group, building norms, rules and norms that are both either spoken rules or unspoken rules. And the goal is to make the group more cohesive. The goal is to promote more self-disclosure, promote open expression of emotion, and promote this self-exploration for the group members. Another task for the group leader in the group is to try to activate and illuminate the here and now process. Oftentimes, clients come into a group wanting to talk about what's happening outside of the group, in their home life, in their past, in their families, um, anything that's happening out in the real world. And this is fairly normal. However, sometimes the leader needs to focus on what's happening within the group, what's happening in the here and now, the process of the group. And so, how they do this is through things like what we learned in Gestalt therapy. They're going to focus on what's happening in the present moment that might be related to the past, but is happening right now. So, let's say someone has anger issues in their family and they are passive aggressive with their anger. And they're talking about how this is an issue for them in their family life. The therapist might try to find out how passive aggressive behaviors might be coming out in the group. Maybe this person's continually coming 10 minutes late. And the therapist might bring that up and say, you're struggling with passive aggressiveness in your family life. I'm wondering if that's coming out through you coming late every week. And that might be something to discuss for the group. So they're going to illuminate what's happening in the here and now during that 1 hour or 1.5 hour group meeting and try to link it to the past. But the more that you can work in the present, the deeper and richer the groups will be. And this is because clients need to not just have a cognitive understanding of their issues, so thinking things through with other people cognitively, but they need to experience these issues, this visceral bodily experience. So if someone's being passive aggressive in the group, they could comment on that and experience what that's like to hear feedback about that. So it's not just talking about the issues, but bringing up the here and now experiencing of these issues in the group itself. On the flip side, what therapists can do to focus on the here and now is to really highlight what members are doing for each other. Maybe highlight what members mean to each other and how they feel towards each other, feel supported. Maybe they feel inspired by someone else. So the group leader can focus on the here and now in the positive ways too, how group members might be offering support to one another, offering empathy, offering advice, offering lots of different ways, inspiration to each other, encouragement. So they're going to, again, focus on the here and now. The final piece that I'll talk about for group leaders in this video are the qualities needed that group leaders need. The qualities that group leaders need. And so there are some personal qualities that make a good group leader. Not everyone enjoys group therapy. Not everyone maybe has these qualities that make a good group therapy leader. So the first are the facilitative conditions that Rogers talked about. And those are those three things: unconditional positive regard, we have empathy, and congruence or genuineness. So these things that are important in individual therapy are also important in group therapy for the group therapist. However, there are some additional requirements or qualities that might be needed for group therapy. The first is the ability to build relationships among the members. So the leader has to facilitate this relationship building among the group members, linking people's experiences together, helping people relate to each other. And this is a specific skill that can be developed through training and readings and so on. And there are also particular personal characteristics that make a good group leader. The first is courage, the ability to highlight things that maybe aren't being said in typical social circumstances and being able to say that in a group. This takes some courage to be able to speak to things that are maybe socially unacceptable and to bring the process out so that it's not just unspoken. Becoming aware of your own culture and biases. This is important because this will come up in group settings of maybe you have a bias to focus on cognitions and you're missing emotions. Maybe it's some sort of cultural biases that you have, and you have to really work on yourself because you're going to work with a lot of people, a lot of different people. You really have to believe in the group process, believe that group therapy is helpful. So this is a personal characteristic. Some people might not think that group therapy is all that helpful. And without this belief in group therapy, you're not going to be a good group therapy leader. You have to be inventive and creative. Imagine, all the unpredictable things people say in group, and you have to really think on your feet and be creative and try to, catch the group where they're at and try to meet them where they're at and bring them along in their journey. And you have to have a non-defensive nature because people will call you out. I remember when I was helping with groups in alcohol and substance use, they often challenge the group leader, and the group leader has to really be non-defensive in how they can take feedback and own up to maybe their weaknesses or things that they're doing that maybe aren't as beneficial to the group. So these are some personal qualities that leaders have, and this mixed with the tasks and the focus, the approach, are what would make a good group leader. I'm going to end the video here, and then the next video will continue with group therapy.